Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Neuroqueering podcast. I'm your host, Pasha Marlowe, here today for another fascinating conversation with my guest, Ellie Carn. Ellie is a certified internal family systems level 3 psychotherapist, presenter, and supervisor who specializes in neurodivergent clients. And I'm so thrilled to have this conversation about how IFS and parts work is really well suited to neurodivergent people. Welcome, Ellie.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much. So, of course, there might be people out there who don't know what IFS is. So, tell us.
I'll give it a go. Okay, so IFS, internal family systems, it's basically the premise that we all have parts, all of us, everyone, we all have parts and we have self. And parts are often in kind of they get pushed into roles through what happens in life. You know, we have trauma, big T trauma, small T trauma. We have things that happen. And so parts of us go, never again. And so we get protectors. So parts that want to keep the system safe. But we also get exiles. So the parts that maybe were shamed or hold the energy of the shame or the trauma or the abuse or the whatever else. And what we're doing with IFS is we are going inside into a person's system and we are starting dialogue with the parts, and we're helping that person to find more of themselves and then understand what the parts are. Why is this part doing this? What's the reason for that? You're making friends with the parts and you're helping the parts to maybe update, because often they've been doing what they've been doing since you were really, really young, and they're kind of young too. It's like okay, an inner critic is a good example. So I think we all have one, right? Like we've all
Yes.
got.
Oh, yes. And just so the audience is clear, this is based in Richard Schwartz's
Yeah,
book he
exactly. Yeah,
did, the IFS modality, and
exactly.
wrote the book No Bad Parts, right?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So it's yeah. So Richard Schwartz, I find that so hard to say. Yeah, he kind of discovered this model. He says that, he says, I didn't invent it, I discovered it through his work with I think clients with they were self-harming. I can't remember if it was an eating disorders clinic or something, but he got to the point of, working out that you didn't really get anywhere by trying to stop a part, by trying to, saying you will not do this ever again. The parts find different ways to do that. And when he stopped fighting and started talking to the parts, it really opened up this world. And that was 30 years ago, maybe a bit more. So in terms of psychotherapy, it's a really new model.
Yes, very
Yeah.
new. I had graduated for my master's program before it was discovered, which makes me feel one, super old, but also I'm so disappointed because I think I would have really resonated with
Yeah.
this modality. And as I understand it, he talked to sexual abusers and people in prison and people who you would think who didn't have any quote unquote good parts, but of course
Yeah.
everyone does. Like the self is always there,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And that's a really important distinction. So there are no bad parts, but that's not to say that we can't say that what the way a part is acting, the way that the part is, ultimately protecting the system, we can say the part is not bad, the part has good intentions, and at the same time know that the way, what the part is doing may be a perpetrator part, for example, or a part that is harming other people, or a part that's harming ourselves. We can say, the action isn't so great, but we have to find the intention behind it. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so when you do parts work with clients, do you speak to the parts and about the parts as they are actual real entities within the person?
Yeah. And I think there's a big, what's this? What am I doing? Big range in terms of in terms of that, because, we're all different, right? And our internal worlds are all different, and the way that we relate to our parts is all different, which I think is really part of the, what's important about this with neurodivergence, which we'll get on to. And I've forgotten your question. Oh yeah, so how you like
Yes.
that, like entities? Yeah, no, exactly like that, and sometimes what you're doing is you're having a client, you're kind of guiding from the outside, almost like, so you're having a client go, talk to, okay, let's get back to the critic one. So, you get, what is my inner critic afraid would happen if they weren't there all the time telling me you're not doing a good job, you're going to fail, whatever else. And that part will often say, well, because I don't want you to get hurt, I don't want you to get embarrassed, I don't want you to get shamed, I don't want you to get rejected.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, the client is talking to that part, and that's a recognition. That's that's why you're doing this. And
Yes.
so, yeah, it's like an entity, but some parts are more kind of, and it depends how we experience things, like more like energies maybe in the body, or for some people they need to kind of externalize their parts using maybe cards, or like sand tray kind of work that you do with young people. I think that's kind of parts work in itself. Do you know sand tray?
Yeah, and well, that makes
Yeah.
me think, people name their parts. Do people give, Mr. Bossy Pants or something? I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's really what I really love about this, is it's never the same twice. So some people will have like my critical part and my young part, but yeah, some people have like the captain,
Right.
or I'm trying to think of something, but also keep it confidential. But kind of like, yeah, or the pilot, or the
Yeah.
the I can't think of one, but yeah, so that they can have names, yeah, or they can have names, just names, like just
Right.
so I've done work with a client who we're working with a really young part in their system, and when we got down to it, and that part had kind of told its story and wanted to release the negativity and the bad things that happened, we did that, and then they just wanted a different name, like
Yes.
just a different um girl's name. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And so when you're working with neurodivergent clients, and I know you and I both specialize in ADHD, autism, ADHD clients, how do you think parts works well for, in general, neurodivergent clients? And then we'll get to specifics.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've got two favorite pet theories at the moment that I'll share with you, and I'll be really interested to see what you think. And I don't know if I said at the top that I'm also autistic ADHD.
Yes. As a,
Um,
mhm. I don't
yeah,
think
so if I hadn't already said that, I specialize in this, but I also am this.
lived
um,
experience and professional experience is the best.
yeah. So why, then you're going to have to ask me the question again. Why do I think it works?
Yes,
Well,
let's start with neurodivergent people as
yeah.
kind of an umbrella answer, and then we'll
Okay.
go specifically to ADHD and
Yeah.
autism.
So I think it works well because, and I think it works well for everybody for this reason,
Mhm.
because it is destigmatizing and de-shaming,
Nice.
because it's not, it's the difference between I am a bad person, or am I swearing okay?
Yeah, yeah, go
I'm
for
a
it.
piece of shit. I'm a
Yep.
piece of shit. I'm a bad person. If I'm going around my whole life feeling that, then that's the truth about me. But if I can say there is a part of me that
Yes.
feels like I'm a piece of shit, there's a part of me that feels like I'm a bad person, we're already in that moment getting a little bit of space that that's not all of me. So that's kind of for everybody. And then for neurodivergent folks, okay, so I think why I think it works well is because a lot of, well, yeah, okay, well, yeah, this is where my brain's going. Therapy is not designed for neurodivergent folk, right? So say we're in a session, say we're face to face, and we're sitting there, and you're my therapist, and which we're you're trained in, I don't know, one of the older models, and I'm sitting here with you, but I'm struggling to kind of form a coherent narrative of whatever it is I'm saying, or I'm looking away, or I keep, yeah, I can't make eye contact with you, or all of those kind of things. In a lot of traditional therapy models, that's really pathologized.
Hmm.
That's, oh, this client's really resistant, or this client's refusing to talk about XYZ, or something like that. So I think what I really like with IFS is that it's just meeting a client where they are, and you're being guided by them and their system. So why is that different? I'm just thinking while I'm answering my own question. So I think it just creates a different, it creates the possibility of a different frame, because there are bad IFS therapists too. It's not
Sure.
magic. It's
No.
not magic, but it creates the possibility to have a different frame, which is more influenced by the client and actually what's going on for them, I
Hmm.
think,
Hmm.
because you're going into their system and saying, well, what's going on for you? What's going on in here? And that's kind of where the therapy is being directed from. The other reason I think it works, well, this is something that I'm thinking about at the moment. This is one of my current favorite sort of things that I'm thinking about. Is like, is parts work unmasking?
Mm. I like it. Hmm.
Yeah.
Right. All the parts of ourselves that we've hidden, all the parts of ourselves that were too dangerous to reveal, all the parts of ourselves that we felt would be rejected. Hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we've gone through, as neurodivergent people, through our lives feeling misunderstood, underrepresented, judged, then having somebody with so much compassion for all of our parts has to be incredibly healing and validating and
Yeah,
empowering. Mm.
exactly, because that's the premise, right? All parts of you are welcome.
Yeah, yeah. And so for autistic and ADHD people in particular, uh, I know for myself, sometimes I'm like, there's my autism showing up, like almost like there's an ADHD part of me and an autistic part of me, and there's many other parts of me as well. But there are certainly times of the day where one is in the
Mm.
spotlight.
Yeah, right. And within it, so what, and we can talk, I'll talk about this as well, because there's a lot of debate in IFS about, is it parts, is it self, where is it? And I think it's really important to say that you know two things. So neurodivergence is not a part, but we have parts that are more, I definitely, like, I've got I've got some parts of me that are very ADHD and some parts that are very autistic.
Right.
But my neurodivergence isn't a part. And I'm making that distinction because there's so much misinformation about neurodivergence out there, and sometimes if we say it's a part, that gives the impression, oh, well, so I can cure that then. My
Mm,
client has an ADHD part, and if we make that part better, then they won't be ADHD anymore. And so, yeah, I think it's really important to say that, there's, like, gender is not a part.
right, right.
It's there's so yeah, I'm kind of, yeah. So, but it's like the identification of parts of me that are more ADHD, parts of me that are more autistic. You can be so much kinder to yourself. Yeah,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
you're meeting with a therapist who's also hopefully being kind and inclusive and welcoming of all parts of you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I imagine even beyond compassion that there might even be a little bit of humor in it because we can witness ourselves. So there's there's my ADHD part,
Sure.
losing her keys again or whatever.
Yeah.
Does it do you feel like the work, while it's very deep and profound, can also be a little bit lighter than some of the more traditional therapy
Yeah.
models?
Yeah, and there's these oh god, like, IFS is full of like the six Fs and the five Cs, and there's these Ps about the kind of what you need to bring as a therapist, as a good IFS therapist, and it's like persistence is one of them, but playfulness is one of them too.
Okay.
Well, when do we play? We play when we're safe.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Safety first. So the
Yeah.
P's are persistence, play.
Oh
Do
no, Pasha, I don't
oh,
know.
don't worry about it. I know there's five C's and compassion
Yeah,
is there, but
yeah. The
it's okay.
the
I know it's hard. acronyms are hard and these lists are hard from
Yeah.
an
And
ADHD perspective.
yeah,
So
exactly. So
so
I've got them written down, but I definitely don't know them off the top of my head.
that's
But yeah,
okay.
persistence is one, and playfulness is one. And I always remind myself of those two, those, because those ones that mean most to me. Because, you know, sometimes if you're, as a therapist, if you're like, you know, where's this going, or I feel
Yeah.
like I'm hitting a brick wall, it's like, no, persistent, like, you know, be with your client, don't give up, stay there. But the
Good.
playfulness as well, because yeah, no, and I don't know about, I don't know what models you trained in, but I trained when I first did my counseling diploma, which was like 15 years ago. I trained in psychodynamic counseling, and it's so serious.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I
I
was
know
fortunate, even though IFS wasn't, uh, maybe it was, well, this was 1996, so maybe it was just on the cusp, but so 30 years ago, 30 years ago, and we had just started talking about narrative therapy. So there was a bit of this playing around with different parts and characters and stories that I really resonated with, but yeah, I didn't get a chance to really dig into it, but I
yeah.
so that was the theory that was most resonant to me as narrative.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's really relevant for a lot of autistic clients as well. I find and this is something I think where it's important. It's not just IFS is great, but neurodivergent informed and affirming IFS is really great, because, you know, often people just need to tell you the whole story a lot of the time. And if we're going, no, right, you need to go inside, find the part, get the part, do a thing, you know, sometimes that can be really, that's yeah, that's not conducive to kind of good therapy. And I think narrative therapy is something that, you know, it does allow the story to come out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's
Yeah.
such a good point because anytime I work with a neurodivergent client, specifically autism or ADHD, there's a level of patience and curiosity and humility that I bring to my appointments that I was never taught in graduate school, that so many other therapists, friends of mine, really don't have the capacity
Mm.
to do. They're like, how can you sit there and listen to us this circular thinking and these stories that go on and
Yeah.
I know that it's part of our process to work through some of our feelings as we talk. Like we're not
Mm.
even, the
Right.
information processing happens in the
Exactly.
moment we're
Yeah.
talking. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Sure.
just think it's good to honor that. And of course, every
Yeah.
therapist has their, you know, different skills and abilities. So it's always good for anyone listening out there, to try and explore, find the person that you match with, whether it's IFS or
Yeah.
anything. Just sometimes a
Yeah.
certain level of compassion and curiosity and empathy goes a long way. And I think it's really nice for ADHD clients to have an ADHD therapist, to have that lived experience and that
Yeah.
identity be transparent. Do you agree with that?
100%. And, you know, that's been a long journey for me. And I've got a lot of unlearning about from the models of therapy I did before, you know, and you know, this idea you never disclose anything about you, you know, it's just,
Blank
which
slate.
never made sense to me. And yeah, okay, sure.
Just neutral
Yeah.
about everything. I have no drama or history or trauma in my life.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been that. And I even when I was supposed to be being that, you know, I can't control what my face is doing.
You're
But
like life
yeah,
telling a different story. Yes.
yeah. But I think it's really important. And I think, you know, the journey of me kind of moving more and more into being that has been really me kind of finding my voice as a therapist, as a trainer, as a supervisor. And it's so like, so I'm just thinking of a little, you know, an example I can give you is because most clients have had some experiences, certainly one-to-one, probably maybe therapy, where they have been shamed, or they have not been understood, or they have not been met, or, you know, their need to move around in a session has been questioned, or whatever else. So, you know, once I had a client who, you know, they needed to lie down that day to do the work, and that's fine. And then at the end, this part came up that was really kind of feeling like, is that okay? Is, kind of apologetic. And all I did was just show them that I've been playing with this stim toy the whole time that they'd been talking, and that's how I concentrate. And
Nice.
that part's just like, oh my God, this is
Yeah,
okay. It's
it's okay.
okay to do this.
Yeah.
And the more I own things like my inability to get the day of the week right, or
Time.
my relentless number confusion, and all of those things, when I own that, I was doing, or when I forget what I'm saying halfway through a sentence, I was doing that. I just was owning it the other day, and a client looked at me and was just like, every time you do that, it reminds me that that's okay.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And it's so, it's not intentional stuff that I'm doing, other than just being like, yeah, I'm all the things. I'm messy. I'll forget everything. I don't know what I just said. Sure, but I'm here with you. Let's get messy.
It's very
Yeah,
present. It's leading with
yeah,
vulnerability, leading with authenticity, and that
yeah,
mutual trust and rapport is probably
yeah,
built so quickly in that
yeah.
space. And I
And
think the younger generations, I know my son and I just had a conversation yesterday, and he said, he said, Mom, sometimes I hear you laughing with your clients, but I know you talk about really serious things. He'll be downstairs. He doesn't hear everything I say, but he hears.
yeah, yeah,
And he said, I've never been to a therapy appointment where we were laughing or where it was fun. He said, but I think you're onto something because no kid wants to go to therapy. But if you actually made it at all playful or fun, then they might actually go and they might hear something that helps them. I'm like, this is true.
yeah,
And it's like, it was just interesting, this light bulb moment, watching him realize there's a different way, and
yeah.
and that it's okay to diverge from therapy and other
Mhm.
things, and other norms, if it feels aligned, if it feels like we're in service to people, which is one of the reasons why I became a coach, because 30 years ago this was not allowed, this
Yeah,
leading with vulnerability and transparency. It just wasn't. And now thankfully there's a little bit more fluidity and freedom for therapy.
yeah.
Mhm.
I think so I discovered IFS just COVID timelines. It was interestingly, I discovered IFS at about the same time that I was realizing my neurodivergence. And I think before that, like, I'd been doing therapy for 10 years or so, but it was, and I was, I didn't, it was, I mean, I was me as a therapist, so I was still, you know, not that blank screen or anything like that. But and I found my own way with it. But I don't know if I'd still be doing it. I don't know how I would have gone through COVID without, if I hadn't found this model that worked so much better, like so much better for my brain and so much better for my clients. I think I would, because it was, it's hard work going through that with everybody. I wouldn't have abandoned my clients or anything, but I feel like I would have got out the other end and been like, oh, right, I need to do something else.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
A lot of therapists burnt out during the pandemic because there
yeah,
was such a collective trauma in the world. And maybe this parts work was healing for
yeah,
both, the
I think
therapist and the
I
client.
really believe that. Yeah.
And so you speak at conferences, IFS conferences, and are you seeing a trend in those conferences where people are talking about how this is a good modality for neurodivergent
Yeah. So
specifically?
so conference singular at the moment.
Okay, it's okay.
um which was brilliant actually. And yes, so the institute, the IFS Institute, I think, not, I have no idea what goes up there, but at the conference that I spoke at in October, it was me and my colleague doing a whole day. They gave us an entire day to talk autism and IFS, and then there was ADHD and IFS, and OCD, and highly sensitive people,
Mm.
and probably something else that I've forgotten. So there seems to be a real embracing of diversity, and there was a lot around gender as well. I had to choose, and I chose all the neurodiversity ones, but there was lots going on around gender and sex and sexuality as well. So there's definitely, I think, an understanding that this model really
Mhm.
offers something different.
And it feels, I talk about intergenerational leadership a lot in the workplace and how we need to lead differently as younger generations are coming in
Yeah.
more neurodivergent aware and affirming, more gender affirming, more gender fluid. And I feel like the parts work in that same intergenerational sense really could appeal to all, and that somebody, a Gen Xer could work with a Gen Alpha and with this IFS work and still communicate well, because I think sometimes it just feels so distant,
Right.
especially
Yeah.
for the younger generations who are coming in really ready to disrupt the status quo and ready to kind of shake things up and expect different amounts of leadership to be inclusive, more inclusive than they've been.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
feels like there's space for that within IFS to be highly inclusive. Do you feel that?
Yeah, I think so. And of course I can only speak, I realize, I can only speak from my own perspective, and I'm white, I'm British, um yeah, middle class and all of those kind of things. So, I hold, I live in the world with a lot of privilege, but my understanding is, and there's, initiatives around, there's a lot of work with kind of specific BIPOC trainings and things like that within IFS. There seems to be a real investment in, supporting minorities, not just to, not as in just, to give therapy too, but to support trainings,
Good, good.
for therapists who are, multiply marginalized as well. I'd love if they did like a neurodivergent training, but hey, watch this space.
Yeah, I'm glad to know that they're doing that intersectional work as well.
Mm.
So do you, as we're wrapping it up here, do you coach and train and speak, or in what capacity do you work right now for those that want to reach out to you?
Yeah, so at the moment, I'll always do my one-to-one work, but I have a very long waiting list, and I'm kind of taking that down a bit now, and I'm doing a lot of supervision or consultation, as it's called in the States, which I do one-to-one. I also do a couple of groups. I did one earlier today, and training-wise, I'm always interested in anything that anyone wants to collaborate on or wants to talk about there. Currently I've run some trainings around autism and IFS and ADHD and IFS. We ran a workshop on that earlier this year, and we're going to do another one in April, because that was loads of fun. Yeah, so that's all where I'm at the moment. But I'm always interested in kind of continuing these conversations and seeing where they go. Yeah.
Wonderful. What is the best way people can reach you or find you?
So Instagram, which I should know, right? I do know it, but there's a part of me that just came in and went, "What if you get this wrong?"
So it's not
So
enough for me.
yeah, it's at IFS underscore with underscore Ellie. Or people can find my website as well, which is linked to through my Instagram, and they can contact me through there and read about more about what I do.
Okay,
Yeah,
and we'll of course put the links in the show
yeah.
notes.
And I
So
will get them right.
we'll make sure we'll check them before we post them. And maybe if there's a link on just a general overview of IFS that you think would be
Oh,
useful,
sure. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah,
then we'll link
yeah,
to Schwartz's book,
yeah,
No
yeah.
Bad Parts. Yeah, is there any thought you want to leave our neurodivergent and or neuroqueer audience with today?
I mean, I could just talk about this forever. And now I have to choose one thought.
Oh,
Imagine.
the most
I would
gorgeous.
what I would say is, for anyone seeking therapy, or interested in IFS, yeah, go and have a look. There's loads of stuff, there's videos on YouTube and things like that. And if it's a model that you like, go find a therapist who is openly saying they are, ADHD, autism friendly, informed, ideally neurodivergent themselves. That's the great thing about Zoom. We can all choose the person that we want to work with. And also, if it doesn't work, then maybe that's not the right therapist for you. So sometimes people stick with stuff. Sometimes there's a sticky bit that you need to get through. But I think for us neurodivergent folk, we're often so full of self-doubt and like, oh, maybe I'm not doing it right. I just want to say as well, if it doesn't feel right, find someone else.
I completely agree with that. Yeah, trust your we often know right away, like our initial gut
Yeah, we know down in our gut,
reaction.
but then we've had decades of whatever to, all the parts of us that are like, all our parts that mask or just quieten that down and all of that. Yeah. So
Conflict avoidant and people pleasing parts.
yeah.
Yeah, I've
I love therapy. I absolutely love it.
understood.
But no therapy is magic. And I think, it's down to, does your therapist know enough to be a place that can feel safe enough for you?
Yeah, and do you enjoy each other's company too?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, exactly. That's so important. And I'm happy for people to ask me questions, in any format. And if people need some guidance about how to find a therapist, maybe I can help with that.
okay, that's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. That is very helpful. So anyone who wants to reach out to Ellie, go ahead and do that. And if you want to reach out to me, my website is pashamarlowe.com. My email is pasha@pashamarlowe.com. Right now I'm doing a lot on LinkedIn at Pasha Marlowe. You can find, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Neuroqueer Coach, but I offer coaching and consultation and training in the workplace as well as at home on neuro inclusion and neuro belonging. And as I mentioned, I'm kind of leaning into this intergenerational leadership and ways we could be more neuro inclusive, neuro affirming, gender affirming to meet the needs of upcoming generations. So yeah, exciting stuff we're doing, Ellie.
Yeah. Oh, great chat.
Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for listening. Feel free to share this. That would be lovely. And if you could subscribe, review, all the things you're supposed to do. Very appreciated. And look forward to seeing you, talking to you soon. Bye, everyone.